Next Door Neighbors is made possible by the support of the Nissan Foundation, the HCA Foundation on behalf of HCA and the TriStar family of hospitals, by a grant from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, and by members of Nashville Public Television.
The United States is a nation of immigrants. For as long as it has existed, people have been drawn to America as a place of rebirth, where they can exchange hard work for new life, prosperity, and hope. Traditionally, immigrants have relocated to large cities with a long history of immigration and job opportunities. But in the last few decades, a shifting economy has meant smaller, mid-sized cities like Nashville, Tennessee, have seen unprecedented growth in their foreign-born populations. In Nashville, an emerging community of Latin American immigrants reflects a transition felt across the southeastern United States. Latin American immigrants, like many others, have been attracted by the South's consistent economic growth, lower cost of living, and moderate climate. In the last 15 years, Nashville's Hispanic community has grown an estimated 800%.
When you come in here, everybody thinks it's easy. I cannot tell you it's really hard because you leave everything.
When I came here, I really did what anybody else does. Went to work, I enjoyed my job.
When I first hit Nolensville Road, I was like, oh my God. Like I saw all the signs, and to me it was like, oh, okay, this is not what people said it was. It felt like a little town in any of these like Latin American cities or even in my country.
I feel very passionate about Nashville. And when I talk about Nashville, it's like I'm talking about my city. Now I can say that I feel more connected to Nashville than even to my home country.
The experience of Latin American immigrants in Nashville is extremely diverse, coming from many countries for different reasons and through different paths. What they found in Nashville in the late 90s was a welcoming city, with an abundance of jobs associated with the commercial and residential boom and in Nashville's growing service economy. But they also found Nashville uninformed about the differences among Latin Americans. Even the label of Hispanic is an American concept.
Before I came here, I didn't think of myself as anything but just myself. But then you get here, and then all of a sudden you're thrown together with a bunch of people that you share some things with. So I never thought of myself as Hispanic before I came to the US. I thought myself as Latin American, South American. What ends up happening is they need to put me on a box, and that box has that label, Hispanic or Latino. I can't blame somebody from Nashville for simplifying things. They just go by their lives and they see a Latino driving by, a brown person, and they don't know anything about that person. They probably never talked to that person. And they have all kinds of stuff that they were fed by the media, which are not true.
The U.S. has a long history relying on immigrants as a source of labor when jobs are plentiful and workers scarce. When the U.S. entered World War II, the Bracero program, organized between the United States and Mexico, brought primarily farm workers to sustain an industry that, at that time, made up 22% of the U.S. economy.
We were really young when we arrived to work. When we entered, they looked at our hands to see if you had calluses, and there they can return you back to your country. Before I came, I didn't have calluses, but I made them. I grabbed a stick and I started to rough up my hands. When we went to the hills, they gave us pitchforks to move the straw and the hay that we fed to the cattle. And yeah, then I got calluses.
Between 1942 and 1964, more than 4 million Mexican laborers entered the United States through the Bracero program. The closing of the Bracero program in 1964 reflected a long legacy of U.S. immigration policy that still holds true today. When workers are needed, the borders are opened, officially or otherwise. When the jobs or political and social will dry up, immigration laws are enacted or enforced. In the early 1990s, the South was poised to experience unprecedented economic growth. Jobs had been moving to the Southeast consistently since the 1970s, and Nashville's central location provided a gateway to the commercial boom. In 1990, Nashville had fewer foreign-born residents than the national average, but that was about to change.
My wife, once we got married, she was a school teacher, and we were in LA, and it was just too crazy. We were praying about where should we go. We have family in Florida and family in Tennessee, and we decided Tennessee was a good place to go. It was southern, it was more laid back, and it just seemed like it had more of the family values that we were looking for. My mom, jokingly, when we were telling her we were going to move down here, said, well, you know, if you move down here, Raul, the Hispanic population is going to double. And that's what it felt like, it really did. That was the summer of '93.
In the mid to late 90s, the Hispanic population in Nashville exploded. Between 1990 and 1998, Nashville ranked #1 in the country in terms of growth in its foreign-born populations, largely due to new arrivals of immigrants from across Latin America.
I heard about Nashville because the Opryland Hotel at that time was having an ad in some of the major papers back home in Puerto Rico. They were interviewing, trying to recruit people. They actually had a very nice presentation, a little bit, they show a little bit about Nashville, about how the city was, especially their hotel, their location. It was really amazing, overwhelming. So that kind of excited me, and I just wanted to give it a try. I came here mainly to work, to better myself. So I spent a lot of hours at my job. I remember sometimes working 80, 100 hours weeks. It was very common for me because I had the opportunity, and that's what I came for. I remember at the time you could have a job for a few months, and then you were displeased for some reason, you could go out, and by next week you will be working somewhere else, sometimes with better wages, better opportunities. It was great at that time.
Not all Latinos in Nashville are economic immigrants. Some are fleeing persecution and crisis in their home country. Nashville's status as a destination city for refugees has also played a role in the growth of the Hispanic community.
That idea of coming here, looking for the American dream, I didn't have that because I didn't know how it was to live here. The only thing you know is that there's no way you can live in Cuba. You know you want something better for your children, you are not happy with the life you have, but you don't have no idea what is to be at the other side. So your only idea is just get out of there. I mean, the country don't matter. It's just to get out of that situation.
Over the last 15 years, Latin American immigrants have found themselves in Nashville, finding jobs, building lives, and connected tenuously by a common language, some similarities of culture, and the binding force of common experience. Southeast Nashville's Woodbine neighborhood represents a microcosm of the city.
I believe Woodbine is the most diverse neighborhood in Nashville at this point. So that has brought a big mixture of immigrants in with people that are pretty set in their ways, I'd say. When I've talked to neighbors, you notice some conflict among the neighbors. And of course, there's always a group of people that think that immigrants, in particular Hispanics, are illegal and mean drunkards and criminals and other things, and they will say it openly. And there is the assumption that all Hispanics are illegal somehow or another, or suspect at the very least. I've had people ask me particularly about my legal status, and it got me thinking about, well, what are the different ways people can come? Because it's this idea that people stand in a line and then apply for a process and come to this country. They just have to wait a little bit. So I looked into what it really is all about. And there are many ways that you can come here as an immigrant. I am, for example, I consider myself an immigrant, but I'm a U.S. citizen. Just happened to be that I was born in a different country. It's been 9 years since I've been in this town. With time, I've noticed things like people complaining about other people speaking a different language. Back in 2000, 2001, nobody cared. Nobody cared of your origin. Nobody was asking for legal status, and everybody was nice and friendly.
The growth of the Hispanic community in Nashville has generated many new businesses, churches, and service organizations meeting the needs of Latinos. Pastor Jose Rodriguez started Iglesia de Dios Hispana in his home in 1995. Today, the congregation counts nearly 2,500 members, has its own radio station, and a mission dedicated to improving the lives of Latinos in Nashville.
This church is well focused. We know that our ministry is in the streets. The church isn't a place only for religious people. The church is not inside of a building. We come on Sundays to celebrate, only to give thanks to God for that which He provides. But our battlefield is outside. That's where the people are that need us.
Iglesia de Dios has been a place where the community can combine resources and help each other.
Repeat after me.
The church has placed a priority on education, helping Latino immigrants learn English and deal with immigration issues.
I see that the community has changed. Many people come from towns in various countries that have not had the opportunity to get an education. What I see is that the Hispanic community needs orientation and training. And I see that our government, our senators, and congressmen also need orientation and training. It is an identifying factor of both groups. How has it been handled until now? There has been a large immigration, a large growth, and our senators weren't prepared. Not even our embassies or consulates were prepared for all the immigrants that have come to the United States. Now, what has been the strongest pressure that has affected us here? It is the issue of identification. Only this. Let us be identified. Let us talk. Let us communicate. Let's see the wealth that we all have. This church grows every day. But what we care about most is that it grows in integrity, in pureness, in the truth, that we learn to love each other as people. Our community is formed with good citizens, and this is what the church does. The church shapes people for the community.
Latino News, a Spanish-language newspaper, provides a media outlet for the Hispanic community and the changing issues facing the city.
When you start this kind of business, you don't have enough money to hire no one to do the job. So as director, I was the salesperson, I was the person who deal with delivering the newspaper, being a reporter, photographer, covering the events. It was like a 7/24 job, but that's what makes a difference.
Alfonso Nieto began working with the newspaper in February 2005, and it has been growing ever since. The distribution of the paper has grown to 10,000 copies across Middle Tennessee, with plans to go statewide in the near future. Nieto attributes the paper's success to its focus.
People read the newspaper because they don't have no other way to get the local news. There is Hispanic TV channels. They just give the news from Miami or from Mexico or wherever, but not what happens around your neighborhood. So that's the job of the newspaper. The first thing we do was to go to the events, to the festivals, taking pictures of the people. People like to see their photo in the newspaper, you know. So we start with that.
In the last year, Latino News has been able to broaden its local coverage with the addition of a new reporter, Camilo Garcia.
Camilo was a reporter of one of the biggest newspapers in our country, Colombia. Unfortunately, he wrote something against some people that he received some threats and he came as a refugee to United States, but it's his life, it's his job. With the help of Camilo, we are covering those kind of important issues for the people. Unfortunately, immigration is one of them. So he's covering like all the local immigration news. Immigration issues are federal issues, are not local issues, but because the federal government are not dealing with that situation, the local or the state, counties, cities are trying to make all the laws to stop the immigration. That's the principal situation that we have been dealing with.
In Nashville, local immigration legislation and enforcement reflects a changing attitude towards immigrants in the city.
I started noticing the change after September 11th, 2001. People became very wary. People got scared. And you noticed it was palpable. The moment the attacks occurred, it just started getting worse and worse progressively.
Two efforts in particular, the English-only initiative and the enforcement of a program called 287G by the Sheriff's Department, have divided the city. 287G has also divided the Hispanic community. The Department of Homeland Security created the 287G program as a way to combat violent crime and terrorism. The Davidson County Sheriff's Department applied to participate in the federal 287G program and was accepted in January 2007. Through 287G, the Davidson County Sheriff's Department has the authority to check the immigration status of anyone once they've been arrested. In the year before the program began, 151 people were deported from Davidson County. In its first 2 years, the Sheriff's Department processed over 5,300 people for deportation. 98% were from Latin American countries. Until 2004, it was possible to obtain a Tennessee driver's license regardless of immigration status. Since October 1, 2007, undocumented immigrants are not able to obtain any form of driver's license.
The police is the one that does the original stop. Metro Police stops a person, checks, finds out that they don't have a license, so they have a reason to arrest the person, and then they deliver that person to the sheriff, and the sheriff is the one that takes care of the 287G part. The police says, well, we don't do anything, all we do is stop the person because he doesn't have a license, and the police considers it's a flight risk, so that's why we arrest them. And then the sheriff says, well, I'm just doing my job. The police delivers these people to me, I don't go out and arrest them. So that's a good, it appears it's a good way for each one of them to wash their hands. The great majority of the people who have been arrested under this program have been for driving offenses, driving without a license. And of course that was not the intention of the program, that's not how it was sold here. But it's a good tool for showing that something is being done about the immigration quote-unquote problem. And it's been pretty effective. The Hispanic community understands that. They notice that they're being looked at more, that they're being pulled over more, and it definitely has. I think there is a profiling aspect to it.
I think all these things that happen with, for example, the 287G, the English only, after the 287G, the people, they don't feel comfortable when they try to call the police to say something is happening over here. For example, there was an assault to a Hispanic business about 3 months ago, and they have very good pictures in the cameras of the store of the people who made the assault. The store sent me the pictures to the newspaper because they didn't want to call the police, but when we put in the newspaper and we put the phone of the store, immediately the people call it. This person is this person, he lives over here, whatever. Then the store gives the information to the policeman, and in 1 week they get the people. There is definitely a fear between the police and the Hispanic community.
I see that the community gets unified because of some external thing like the English only or 287G or something that is outside the community that all of a sudden creates this need for people to talk to each other and go like, did you hear that? What's up with that? And I think that people that are outside the community don't understand what's going on. They don't understand that if you want to talk about immigration, that's fine. But yet, when they talk about undocumented immigrants, they talk about Mexicans. And I'm like, every time you do that, you're showing a bias. You're not talking about immigration, you're talking about your problem with a particular community. The community reacts feeling threatened because they can see right through the noise and understand that this person doesn't have a problem with undocumented immigrants. That person has a problem with people that look like me.
Some of us that have been here get a little frustrated as we're lumped together with those that have come here illegally. So I favor the 287G only because if you break the law, whatever that may be, that you have to face the judge. And unfortunately, if you come in here undocumented, you're going to always be under that shadow.
Immigration issues in Nashville have not only separated natives from immigrants, legal status in the Hispanic community has divided families.
Our system has created different social different classes among families, even among the same family. Because some people in the family can drive, they don't have no fear having to leave the country, they can go to college, they can get a better job, get a better salary, and you have these other members in the family, they are living like in the dark. And that creates conflicts. I'm legal and you are not. And I can do things that you cannot do. Even we are from the same background. We are from the same ethnicity. We speak the same language. Or we have the same job. We are different.
Okay, Italians.
Public education is available regardless of legal status. But legal status still shapes the experience of Latino students in Nashville's public schools.
All I remember is my mom saying, we're moving. But when I got here, it was just like, whoa, this is different. And everybody looked at us weird, so I was like, Mom, why are we so different? So it's just, my mom was just like, we're not different, we just talk different. And I was like, so we're different. She was like, in a way, yeah.
For undocumented students, many don't even know what limitations they will face until they get older.
It was in 7th grade when I figured it out. My mom was just like, we came here legally, but we stayed illegally. And I was like, oh, and at that point, I didn't get it, what she meant, but then it just started coming all together around 7th grade, and I was like, wow. I was like, I guess I am different.
We started figuring it out like when we were in middle school, junior high, when they started talking about college and how if you had papers you can go. That's when we started talking about how undocumented people couldn't go to college, or if they could, it would be expensive, they couldn't get aid, they couldn't get scholarships. And that's when everything just started piling up. A lot of my friends, and they're like, why should I study in high school if I'm not going to go to college? I'm just going to work in construction, or I'm just going to go back, or I'm not going to go to high school anymore. So they drop out senior year, junior year, or they don't even come to their freshman year. They just drop out because they know they're not going to go to college.
Right now, out of all my family that's in Nashville and back in Dallas, I'm the only one that has made it so far to the 11th grade. My big brother dropped out when he was 10. My other cousins didn't even make it to 9th grade. Probably because they thought that, what's the point of it? All the friends that I actually know, almost everybody dropped out.
Many Latino students have responsibilities beyond their school commitments. They translate for parents and work jobs to support the family. Graduation rates for Latino students in metro schools are lower than average.
Sometimes stuff goes through my head, saying that if I was thinking about quitting school just to go to work and help them out, but at the same time be like, if I drop out of school, then what's going to be my future? I really want to graduate, go to college, have a good job. To me, it's important because so my cousins or my family can actually see how far I came. they would look at me as like a star, knowing that I'm their shining star, that they could actually graduate or go to college and not just drop out or anything. So they could see that I actually made it, and they can too. They're not different. They're the same.
I'm in school right now. When I get home, I don't know if my mom's gonna be there, if my brother's gonna come back or anything. I don't know what's gonna happen, so I just have to wait until the day's over, and okay, if my mom's here, it's just another day, and then the next day is the same thing.
For my future, I don't see much now, like, I guess, because I can't do nothing to change it. When I turn 18, I would like to vote. I would like to do things like that, but it's like, I can't. It's like, I have to pretty much keep my opinion to myself, because like, I can tell it to somebody, but it's not gonna count if I say it or not. It makes me feel like I'm in a box of my own thoughts, because I can't go out there and spread them out freely like I would if I had documents.
The unresolved conflicts of immigration are felt in Nashville, as they are across the country. Cities and states wrestle with questions related to immigration and legal status that ultimately must be resolved on the federal level.
I look at it as a marriage. The early stage was the dating period, and then came you got married, had the honeymoon stage. And I think we're right about the 7-year itch, where both sides are going, well, is this right? Hispanics are saying, well, I don't know if I'm welcome here anymore. I mean, people are questioning what language I speak. And I think it's a very scary time, in a sense. I think we need to bridge it, because both communities think alike. They think alike. I mean, Hispanic culture and the Southern culture are very similar. That's the funny thing about it. It's hardworking, loving people who would go out of their way to help each other.
I'm very disappointed that year after year after year, we looked the other way, and then all of a sudden people went like, what happened? Where all these people came from? And so our own government decided to look the other way, so we end up having this huge problem. But then every time we have tried to solve it at the federal level, people on both sides of the aisle don't like it enough.
The United States is my country, and it is my duty to protect it and defend it, and prepare every person to understand that they have arrived to a new country, where one day Americans, Hispanics, will all realize that no matter what color of skin we have, red blood still runs through all of our veins.
Next Door Neighbors is made possible by the support of the Nissan Foundation, the HCA Foundation on behalf of HCA and the TriStar family of hospitals, by a grant from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, and by members of Nashville Public Television.